What's up guys, I'm Joe, and with the new Arctic Monkeys album on the way, I decided to rank all 5 of their previous studio albums. Here we go. So this was actually really hard to do. I didn't really expect it to be as difficult as it ended up being. They only have 5 studio albums. I'm not going to talk about who the fuck are the Arctic Monkeys, one of their more famous EPs, despite it having some really great songs. Just talking about the 5 studio albums, and yeah, it turned out to be really difficult. What I realized is that I do really love all 5 of these albums. I think they all have a lot to offer to them. So when it came to ranking, it kind of came down to nitpicky things, where I might have preferred, some songs a little less than others. So yeah, but we'll get right into it. What I can say, and what I've always kind of known as a fan of this band, is I think my ranking is not one that would really be popular with fans, but we're going to go into it anyway.
Come on, come on, come on, number one, party anthem.
So yeah, starting at number 5, we have AM. I could sense people clicking away from the video already. So yeah, the band's most recent album sparked some pretty huge singles such as Are You Mine, Do I Want to Know, Why'd You Only Call Me When You're High. It's an album that definitely got me sort of back into the band. I remember when they came out, and I remember when the first big single they had was I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor. I remember that being on MTV like every day. But I kind of hadn't really followed them past Humbug, so then when AM came out and there was a lot of hype behind it, and I checked it out, and I was like, oh, I really dig this. I remember this band. That's when I really got back into them. And nonetheless, I went through a huge phase of them for a number of years, and just really listened to all these albums over and over. And I gotta say, I wouldn't have said this probably even 2 days ago, but really exploring the albums again, I would put this at the bottom. Again, like I said, it's gonna be kind of nitpicky because I love all these albums, but really there's just a couple songs that don't work for me quite as well as far as a full album. I've never really been a big fan of I Want It All. Pretty straightforward song, doesn't do much in the way of changing things up. There's sort of a hypnotic element to the melody that I never really cared for. And the closer, I Want to Be Yours, I was never too into. It just kind of felt a little too slow, a little bit too much like it was dragging, and I didn't think it worked as a closer, especially because Arctic Monkeys have been known to have really fantastic closers, as we'll get to in some of the earlier albums. So there's like some minor detractions that put it towards the bottom for me, but otherwise, I really love like the vibe of this album. It's kind of moody, kind of dark, atmospheric at times. It definitely has this like 70s rock kind of vibe to it. You can look to that in songs like Arabella, which has these great crunchy garagey guitars, but at the same time employing these kind of R&B sounds into some of the songs. Look at something like One for the Road, especially those verses. And number 1, Party Anthem, definitely one of my favorite Arctic Monkeys ballads. I've always really enjoyed that song. And a song like Snap Out of It has a really nice groove to it, nice feel. Knee Socks, which features some vocals from Josh Homme on there, definitely a good one as well. So while of course it's a great album, it does come in last, and we'll move on to number 4. And number 4 is Humbug, the band's 3rd studio album. What I've always admired about this band is their willingness to change up their sound, and I think, no matter what they do to their sound, it always seems to work. I definitely expect that with the new album. I don't think it's going to sound like AM, so I'm definitely excited to hear that. But yeah, Humbug was definitely a huge departure from the first 2 records. It was much sludgier and moodier. They did it out in the desert with Josh Homme, so it definitely has that sort of Queens of the Stone Age influence on it. It culminates in this wonderfully melodic outro that is kind of referenced in the beginning of the song, and I just think that's so great. Another song, Cornerstone, another one of my favorite ballads by the band. It's got such a great melody to it, but I think Alex's lyrics just paint a really good picture. You're really like getting the story and able to envision it so well. I really kind of like the line of the elongating my lift home, where he says he smelled her scent on the seatbelt and kept his shortcuts to himself. Something about that line I've always really liked. He's always got a clever way of saying things, kind of like dances around a subject rather than getting right into it. Fire and the Thud, another one that does a really good job of that slow build. It's pretty mellow throughout most of the song before definitely exploding. There's some great guitar leads towards the end there. And a song like Pretty Visitors is pretty cool because it's like pretty explosive throughout the verses, but has this very like hypnotic, psychedelic chorus to it. I love that back and forth in that song. So yeah, that's Humbug. We'll move on to the number 3 choice.
It's right up to the point where they
which number 3 is Favorite Worst Nightmare, the band's second album. I would sort of lump this together with the first album as far as like the sound goes when I would initially think about it, but when you really dive into this one, it is quite different from that first album. While the majority of the songs on both of the first two are more upbeat, kind of punkier in their delivery, I feel like there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here. This album definitely has a darker feel to it than the first one. The opener, Brian Storm, is just so explosive, so in your face, great guitar work, excellent drumming, all around just a fantastic way to open the album. Teddy Picker as well is another great one, keeps the energy moving. I love the groove to this one, definitely leading to more of the kind of swagger-induced stuff they would do later on. D is for Dangerous, another great one that really just keeps the energy flying on this one. They kind of bring it down on a song like Only Ones Who Know, which is really such a simple song. For the majority of it, it's just the, very straightforward guitar, Alex's vocals, but I've always really liked this song. I think it just has a great melody to it. I love the atmosphere of it. Old Yellow Bricks, towards the end, has this great groove to it. Big crunchy riffs as well. And really, we're just at a point in their discography where it's like, it's only 3 because of, I had to choose, and it's super nitpicky. I never really liked the song Balaclava and Do Me a Favor and The Bad Thing. They're okay, just don't have the same kind of staying power as some of the band's other songs. I think they're definitely kind of outweighed by some of the bigger songs on here. Speaking of which, 505, another fantastic closer for the band. Again, another sort of expert class in just building dynamic in a song. It starts with this kind of organ and Alex's vocals, and I just love how the instrumentation piles on and builds until it's just exploding at the end once again. Something the band does so well. And of course, there's Fluorescent Adolescent, which is this sort of mid-tempo, bouncier kind of song. Definitely another memorable one as far as the hooks go. And like I said, the only reason I put this one here is because I feel like some of the songs are not quite as memorable as others, though, like, if you listen to the thing all the way through, they're definitely not songs I would skip. It's just songs that, when I look at the band as a whole, don't stand out to me quite as much. So with that being said, we'll move on to number 2. Yeah, number 2 is Suck It and See, which I feel is probably not a popular opinion, just from what I've seen anyway. Any sort of rankings or comments or stuff like that, I feel like this seems to be the least favorite of a lot of people. I just never really connected with that. I just feel like the album has such a great, sort of pop sheen and cool vibe to it that's very different in the course of their discography. It definitely feels like a sort of brighter record as far as the tone goes. Definitely, calling back to a sort of, guitar pop sound, which I think works pretty well for them. I love the melodies on this album. I love the lyrics on this album. And really, like, as soon as I heard this one, it just had so many songs that I found myself going back to over and over again. And it's really more of the ballad-based songs that, that I love about this album, as opposed to the more upbeat and energetic ones, which is interesting. Usually I'm kind of the other way around. But songs like Don't Sit Down Because I Move Your Chair, or like Brick by Brick, those kind of songs, while I have like a bluesy or garage rock type feel to them, I feel like they're okay, like they're good. But, definitely I prefer the songs like Pile Driver Waltz, Reckless Serenade, Love is a Laser Quest, those kind of songs. I love the classic kind of feel of Reckless Serenade, especially the bass line that goes on throughout that is really cool. And I feel like Alex Turner's like melodic sense on this album is just so top notch. Pile Driver is another good one that, I just love the way it kind of changes in its feel. It does have that sort of waltz feel in the chorus. Songs like Love is a Laser Quest have, such great melody to them, but also this very melancholy feel. It's interesting. I feel like, like I said, the tone of the album feels brighter when I think about it. But some of the lyrics on here are definitely more about, like, a lost love, things like that. I think that makes it, like, easier to connect with this album. On Love is a Laser Quest, I love the line, when I'm not being honest, I pretend you're just some lover, or something like that. There's sort of like a sardonic realness to a lot of these lyrics as far as like the lost love type songs on here, which I think it makes it easy to connect with as an album overall. I feel like Turner's lyrics are a little bit harder to decipher a lot of the time. He throws in some weird stuff, especially once you get into like AM territory or the Last Shadow Puppets' recent album. This one, the sort of straightforwardness of it at times, like I said, makes it easy to connect with. She's Thunderstorms, I think, is a great opener. It has that sort of 50s pop rock kind of feel in its delivery. And again, as they've always done, it does a great job of really building itself up. While it's not the most energetic or explosive of their songs, the choruses are just really huge. The bridge section with the lead guitar lines over it, just really great. I also like a song like All My Own Stunts. It has this sort of coolness to it, I guess, this sort of swagger to it. which I definitely do like. So yeah, probably not a popular choice to have this one all the way up at number 2, but it's just an album I've always really liked. So if you don't really like this one, maybe give it another chance. Suck it and see.
One of them's alright, the other ones are scary, and his way or no way, totalitarian. He's got no time for you, looking or breathing how he don't want you to.
And now we're moving on to our number 1, Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not, their debut album. Really kind of an obvious choice for me to be at number 1. I think it's so well-rounded as an album. I really love every song on here. It tells these like interesting kind of mini stories, like everything kind of fits into the same kind of idea of like out in the streets or out going to parties or in clubs or things like that. I feel like the music varies pretty well. You have some garage rock on here, some punk influence, a certain romance, part of it even, has some like ska-like chords to it that work so well. That one I think is definitely like their best closing track. It just feels so epic in its delivery. It starts in one place, it gets mellow out, it builds itself back up, and just ends with this explosive outro. I bet you could look good on the dance floor. The band's like first big hit single as far as I can remember, and definitely a fun one. It's cool to see like videos of the band, I guess because they like to play so much new stuff. These older songs already seem to have this sort of like cult following to them in a way. When they break into these older songs, like people just freak out because they don't play them as much already. And for a band that's pretty young, that's kind of a weird thing. I've always loved Still Take You Home, which starts with this sort of raucous, high-energy garage rock type sound. The way they use the cleaner guitars in the verses of a lot of these songs I find really cool and just adds to that sort of explosive factor as the choruses come in. Fake Tales of San Francisco has this just infectious groove to it, as does Dancing Shoes, which is a little bit more up-tempo, more of like a almost disco vibe to it, but just, so much fun to listen to. The View from the Afternoon, like when you think about it, is actually like a pretty weird song in its delivery. It has these like weird guitar patterns that go back and forth on each other, which is just so cool. Just such a nice energetic way to start the album. I've always liked Riot Van, which feels like a short little interlude, but it's definitely, giving indication of some of their ballads that were to come in their discography. And again, Alex's melodic sense, which I always find so great, was really on point already with this song and this album overall. And just these classic songs with such staying power just, go throughout the entire record. Even the B-side of the album has like these huge songs, Marty Bum, When the Sun Goes Down, From the Ritz to the Rubble. That second to last track really being a huge standout for me. I love how it just starts basically right into it. Like it's just Alex is talking and it goes right into the song, which is pretty cool. So yeah, overall, this album is just, in my mind, perfect from start to finish. Definitely a modern classic. So I'm super excited for the new record. I'm going to be reviewing that probably a couple days after it comes out, like to take the time and really listen to it. And I'm not really a guy that goes and listens to leaks and stuff like that. So yeah, let me know what your ranking of the Arctic Monkeys albums. You can include the new one if you'd like, if you heard it already. I definitely would like to know in the comments. I suspect that your ranking would be different than mine, because as I've seen, people don't really like Suck It and See as much as I do. But if you are one of those people, I would love to hear from you. So let me know in the comments if that's one that you find is underrated as I do. But if not, yeah, I'd love to know your rankings. Thanks for watching. As always, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.